You can sit here also.
Okay, everyone, I just want to mention that we're going to record this evening's slideshow and event for those who can't attend. So if you don't want to be recorded, turn your video off.
It just came on and said this meeting is being recorded.
I want to know when Pete's hair went white.
Did it sound like
Oh, wait, what am I talking about?
I was going to say, you've been out of the loop for a while.
Exactly.
Jeff's looking mighty blonde there.
I was about to say, sometimes I'll walk by.
Are you talking about the other
Jeff?
Jeff? Is that what you're saying?
Oh my goodness, aloha.
A little closer.
That Jeff with the G guy.
Hi, Laura. Hi, Holly.
Karen.
Yeah, hi. Everything's very small, so I actually have a hard time seeing people.
I agree. I completely agree with that.
That in the interface, but
I think there's a setting for that.
oh, there's Jeff.
Hello.
Mark, are you on?
Wow, look at all you people.
There's Jeff and Sue. How nice.
It's kind of like Hollywood Squares times 9.
Hello, Michigan.
Oh, definitely an all-star cast.
Yeah.
Wow.
Multiple time zones.
Multiple continents even, right? Hi, Meg.
Awesome.
Hi.
Oh my God, really? Yeah. Who's Meg Hilbert?
Greetings from Uganda at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
What time is it? Yeah, like
7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's true dedication.
Where's our host?
Then we can't.
He hasn't turned his camera on because he doesn't want to be recorded.
he's worried about
I'm looking
Doge.
for him.
There he is.
Hey, while we're getting organized here, I just want to share a little story that after I graduated from college, I was working at an environmental center in Marin, and it was the first time I ever heard about Earth Day. And I thought, what a great idea. Why didn't this catch on? Why haven't we been celebrating? And then I was doing a little traveling in Central America, and I was thinking, what do I want to do when I get back? And I thought, well, the 20th anniversary of Earth Day will be coming up. Maybe I can move to a community like Santa Cruz that will be welcoming and just organize some kind of 20th anniversary event. So I came back, and I was living in Santa Cruz.
Network bandwidth.
And there was a conference at Stanford called You Can Make a Difference, put on by the students, and the theme was the environment. So I went and checked that out. Susan, you were part of that. Yeah, right on. And the keynote speaker was Dennis Hayes, and he announced he was organizing a 20th anniversary of Earth Day. It was going to be international for the first time, and it was headquartered in Palo Alto, my hometown, and had an office in downtown. So next day I showed up in the office and moved back into town, and I just started working on fact sheets and things. And after a week, I said to Dennis, hey, I'd love to make this my job. And he was a little befuddled because he thought they'd hired me. But I just kind of wormed my way in. And it was such an amazing experience. It was just so many wonderful people got involved. But it was also a campaign. So a lot of people were working, all day and on the weekends, and we kind of had that end date in sight, Earth Day. So for a lot of the staff, they were pretty burnt out by Earth Day and ready to take long vacations. But for some employees and a lot of volunteers, we realized Earth Day wasn't the end, it was the beginning. It was a lot of people were just hearing about the environment. They wanted to get plugged into projects. So we talked about forming a group, Bay Area Action. And when we had our celebration with staff and volunteers for Earth Day 1990, I mentioned that, I'd spoken with Jim Bear, who owned the building and had been letting Earth Day use it. And he said we could continue to use it, and he'd throw in the utilities because he loved what we were doing. And maybe we would help him with his Earth Day project, which was getting all the businesses in downtown to recycle. And so I announced Bay Area Action, and there's this BAA that went out through the room. So that was maybe the official launch of Bay Area Action. But so many wonderful friendships came out of that. I think we had a dozen marriages that came out. I think that was part of our secret sauce is like, let's have a lot of fun. There's a
And they
reason to
paid some money, as
participate.
I recall, too.
What's that?
They paid some money as a result.
Yeah, there was the BAA dating club. If you met someone, you had to pay $50. That was our big fundraiser at the time.
Yeah, I think Jeff, I think you still owe your $50, so you can send that into the project for Mark.
We met before BA.
Yeah.
We
No,
were
no,
the
Stu. No.
I should
With
send that
interest, with interest, 35 years.
Yeah. I'll send you a check, David.
Yeah. But it's really marvelous that Mark took on this really huge project of archiving our history, which otherwise has kind of disappeared. We were mostly pre-internet. And, it was an opportunity for a lot of us to go through our old materials and scan them and send them to Mark. There's probably still a lot of stuff that he doesn't have yet. So this is an opportunity for you, if you see something missing and you have it, get it to Mark, and he'll scan stuff too. If you don't have the ability to do that, you can just send him materials and he'll send them back. But it's just, a huge project that Mark's taken on. I'm going to hand it over to him to talk a little bit about it. But part of the purpose of tonight is to try to raise a little bit of money to help cover the expenses. And so at the end, we will ask you if you could be as generous as you can to help support Mark's work. That would be really, really helpful. Mark, anything you want to say, or are we not quite ready to get started?
I'm just sending a link to Felicia on the East Coast.
Yeah, I got connected, Mark. I'm on already.
Oh, good.
Lee, one
Nice
of the
to see you, Peter.
originals.
All right. Well, hopefully nobody else is lost in the massive links that Zoom apparently sent out when I updated the calendar. I apologize for the confusion. Zoom has made things very difficult this time around. I'm so glad everybody joined, though, and we have quite a massive slideshow we're going to show. So I think we're going to dive right in. We have a bunch of guest narrators, and we're going to start off with Peter, starting off the slideshow in the first section. And we're going to go kind of fast. I'm going to ask everyone to mute your mic during the slideshow. If you really need to interject, feel free to unmute and ask or raise your hand or something. But since we have 400 some slides to go through, I don't want to keep you guys here all night long. So I want to zip through them relatively quickly.
And
All
I
right.
think Mark gave me 2 seconds per slide, so I'm going to be very, very
2.9.
fast, which is hard for me to do.
So here's what we're going to cover, though. A section of photos from the early years and some of what BA did early on. And then I put together slides in buckets covering the major themes and projects over the years. And even with 400 slides, I couldn't fit everything in. So if I omitted anything at the end, feel free to flog me. And then a whole section on creative activism, something of a hallmark for BA, and a little bit briefly about BA's legacy. And then I'm going to talk about the History Project a bit after that and give you a little view of the website. So without further ado, Peter, hit it.
Well, the early years. Next. Here's Dennis Hayes. And this was, yeah, I guess this was Earth Day 1990. And so here's Dennis and Mark Dubois, who had famously chained himself to a boulder to save the Stanislaus River unsuccessfully, and Teresa McGlashan. Washington, D.C. 200 million people participated in Earth Day 1990 in 141 countries, making it the largest organized demonstration in history. South Korea. Global reach. A lot happened. I love stories about when people tell me it's like, oh, that's when I became an environmentalist. I was in 5th grade and we started an environmental club. And, there's stories about maybe not the big events in DC or San Francisco, but how Earth Day changed people's lives. Palo Alto, Peninsula Conservation Center Foundation, out at the Baylands. A lot of people showed up locally. San Francisco was one of our big events. This poster kind of launched Bay Area Action. We postered all around town with wheat paste, and David Smirnoff got in trouble for postering in front of the mayor's parking spot under City Hall and had to go remove it. Big deal. And probably the most important thing is we launched Bay Area Action on Earth Day. In 1970, they had the Environmental Protection Act. In 1970 and 1990, we had Bay Area Action. Lots of gatherings, meetings. Debbie Ford Scriba helped us get some good media attention. She was with the Weekly. Jeff, Bill, Harriet. So that was the Earth Day office that became the Bay Area Action office, hence the globe. Bob Valdez started the Bay Area Action Cafe, BAA Cafe, music and speakers, having fun, very social, good food and drink, often donated. We had wonderful speakers come through. About once a month, we had this social activity. More socializing. Again, 12 marriages. We were all a little younger back then. War is not an energy policy was the backdrop there. Some of the original gang. See Beth and Chuck there on the right. Here's some characters. There's Rich. She's with us today. I think Tex might be on as well. Fortunately, our clothing has evolved since then, style-wise. I think this was the Bay Area Action Eco Store. Amy Peters started that. The schools group was one of our very first projects, and for 10 years, one of the most successful, maybe the most successful. Kath Armour on the right there was the founder of that. Early schools group, you might recognize yourself. Redwood Summer was one of our first big campaigns, summer of 1990. There's Chuck. We took a reporter up to report with us, camped out, skunk ran up and smelled her at night. Lots of banners. This is I think that was in Scotia. Took a lot of trips up to the Redwoods, really, appreciate what we still have. Michael Tiemann put together these slides that were on in movie theaters before movies. Michael's with us tonight. And Bay Area Environmental Peace Action Network was founded after the Gulf War started. So environmentalists throughout the Bay Area working. We worked closely with the Peninsula Peace and Justice Center, organized a lot of demonstrations. Here's Susan generating letters at one of the events. We did a lot of letter writing back then. Huge event in Palo Alto, about 5,000 people turned out. Of course, the human sign was a big part of Bay Area Action. And so focused a lot on nuclear issues. Here's another human sign. Over 101. There's Ole Olson. We've lost touch with him if anyone knows how to reach him. Good to see him. Peace Fair at Mitchell Park. A lot of activity in the early days. Peace Fair again. Maybe you see yourself in some of these photos. Here's in San Francisco, sending the message to China that we wanted them to stop nuclear testing as well. Here's at the Nevada test site. We spent a lot of time out there. Nevada test site. Worked with a lot of groups like Healing Global Wounds. Some signs were a little bit naughty. This is the first time I was at the test site just before Earth Day 1990. Met Rick Springer then. We also brought our anti-nuclear activity to the Bay Area, Livermore Lab, involved in protests there. There were arrests. There's Will Beatty, got arrested. Haven't seen him in a while. We were very involved in stopping the nuclear waste dump proposed for Ward Valley down in Southern California in the desert on Native American land. A lot of schoolies showed up for that. There's Ernie Goitain on the right, a nuclear physicist who became a leader, local guy from Atherton. Pretty bad idea. When we were out there, we had a peace camp and they said we weren't allowed to bury waste, meaning compost. We thought that was a little ironic that they told us we couldn't bury compost in the desert, but they wanted to bury our nuclear waste. And the 100th Monkey, wonderful event. Originally, it was going to be in 1991. The Gulf War bumped it to 1992. A lot of work with Native American tribes, the Western Shoshone, on whose land. There's Rick Springer on the right here. It was his brainchild. It took a lot of people to bring it to pull together. We tried to get a lot of publicity here in the Bay Area, and we're pretty successful. That's Father Junipero Serra. I think that was Dan Viome hanging there. Jimmy Carter gave $100. Yay, we miss him. Miss the Pope, too. There's Rick Springer on the left, some of the BAA gang on the right. Wendy, I see you're joining us tonight. I saw you in that picture. Speaking of Wendy, here's Earth Circus performing. It was a weekend of music and speakers and camping out, and then a week-long walk to the Nevada test site from Las Vegas. This was a die-in in Las Vegas, the Department of Energy. This is the walk going to a weekend of direct action at the test site. Wonderful people. Rich Follansbee led people through the desert. There were some arrests. These are the Whackin' Huts. There's Rick. Shortly after he got out of jail, you probably heard about the Broken Eagle incident. That's a whole story in itself. But Rick got out and was able to participate in the rest of the activities.
Okay, now we switch to Mr. Smirnoff as our narrator.
Okay, sorry about that, everybody, but here we go. So we did a lot of campaigns, and transportation was one of the first things we did. Some of our early stuff was the Beat the Backup Parade, coordinated with City of Palo Alto. Jim Steinmetz pulling a surfboard. We had people on unicycles and bicycles and skates and rollerblades and walking, coordinated with a lot of people. Solar car was there. And this was the Why Not Car Pull. And we pulled the Volkswagen through the event, and here we are with this surfboard, poaching on us on the back. So we had a lot of fun, and our motto was, if it ain't fun, it don't get done. So people just doing all kinds of fun stuff around alternative transportation. And David Cole and the Electric Vehicle Project converted the MG way before electric cars were popular. And, I think Will Doolittle donated the car, Jeb Eddy working in David Cole's garage, converting it over, and David took it everywhere, drove all over, got international attention, people all over the world looking how, we'd done that, what's going on with it. The schools group then got busy and converted a Rabbit. So it's just like, so snowballed that activity around that. And now we see electric vehicles are, just like taking over the world. But David was a real champion of this, and he was an award-winning climate activist, Bay Area Clean Air champion. I don't think we still have the car. And then we did a lot of other transportation initiatives over the year, like extending BART to the airport, which has now happened. But we didn't add more runways to the San Francisco Bay. We did not pave it in. Laura Steck, who's here on the call, probably having a Culatini, I think, started Bike Week, keeping up with the fun, making biking fun, getting people to do that. Bike to work day, and then, walking to work, and then bringing the stilts in to do it, keeping it all fun and fresh. Then the critical mass bike rides, again, more fun, and coordinate with other groups. That's, I think, something that we did a lot of was, to work with other groups, do what they were doing, getting our crew to go and join other people and just, make it bigger and better. One of my favorites was the SUV ticketing. There's Sheeb and I giving this gal a ticket, and some people didn't like it, but I think most people really enjoyed the fun and activity of it. And then, Pete can talk about this a lot more than I can, is the whole Devil's Slide tunnel. The road is caving in. And so, again, building coalitions, working with a lot of other groups, trying to figure out better solutions than what we're coming up with. So, big campaign, late mid 90s, I guess, to save Montara Mountain is part of it. The land issues come in, but, and the frogs come in trying to, get everybody on board with a better solution. And Pete was the master organizer, getting everybody on board. I forget who that is, but, tunnel, yes,
Barnwell.
we can dig it.
Bill Barnwell.
Yeah. And all these land issues, we did a lot of writing and commentating and, just getting people to think about, what we were doing with the world. I worked at Moffett Field for a long time, and it's like, what are we going to do with it? And, I think it's still up in the air how that land use is going to change. Cargill, great success story. A lot of that land now has been, put into salt pond restoration is really going well. A lot of good land use change around the bay, cleaning up the estuary. St. Patrick's Seminary was another site that we weighed in on. I don't know if Penny Durham is on this call, but, just trying to look at our local land and how we take care of it. Did a lot of redwood forest, stuff up in the north, but also here in the Santa Cruz Mountains, so it was great to be able to go out on trips and bring people out to look at that. Montara Mountain, working with people on trying to address coastal development. There's the lighthouse, all over up and down the coast. Potrero Commons, I don't really know what ever happened with this issue, but this San Bruno Mountain, Cindy and I just a year ago just went up and took another hike with David Schooley up on San Bruno Mountain. A lot of great stuff still happening up there, protecting that. Bear Island now has been protected. So a lot of really great success stories over the years of things that have happened. Coyote Valley, again, now a lot of Coyote Valley has been protected and brought into the Santa Clara County Open Space Authority, and a lot of great stuff going on there. Went further afield out into places like Yosemite, and great to be able to take people up and do trips there. And Ward Valley, Cindy and Pete and I and Steve Miller had a great time going down there with a big group of people trying to save that. And then farewell to Clackawanna Sound. I mean, it's like, issues well outside of our region, but that we weighed in on and really took an interest in trying to do something important about. And then closer to home, there is Pete, trying to, protect Ohlone Field. Ironically, he ended up living there, but that's a whole different story. But the whole Stanhill thing is like, how are we gonna leave it Ohlone? Stanford wins some, Stanford loses some. Sometimes we get a sidewalk, sometimes we get a trail, sometimes we get a sausage railroad, sometimes, we do better.
We lock ourselves to a machinery.
Yeah.
Those text. We did get 99 years of protection for the Stanford foothills recently.
That's right. And a lot of good stuff has come out of the GUP. The foothills are still protected. So, I think, we've really weighed in a lot, far afield and very close to home. Habitat restoration, of course, is my, real thing that I got involved in. The Baylands, trying to protect the Baylands has been really important. Some of our earliest stuff was doing the creek cleanups there. Pulling all kinds of stuff out of the creeks and the Baylands. And I'd have to say the Bay Action crew probably did more about getting stuff from places that no one else wanted to touch, with like the flotillas and bringing boats out and hauling trash out.
Yeah, Jason.
Yeah. And then there's Jason. I think we still have that refrigerator, still using it as part of our flotilla. It's just like so creative, right? And just literally tons of trash and oil. And I think Karen still has that mattress, still using it. Or maybe Mary Kenny has it, but I mean, just all kinds of.
You remember the engine we pulled out?
Yep. There's stuff that nobody else would deal with, but that we were really keen. We just had so much fun doing it, but I think brought a whole different energy to it. Getting out on our beaches, cleaning those up further afield. We were all over the Bay Area doing that kind of work around the Stanford foothills.
Cat.
And again, up on San Bruno Mountain, weighing in with other groups, bringing more energy to other groups, I think is something that we really excelled in. It's just like, somebody's doing something great. Cindy and I met pulling pampas grass, out of the Santa Cruz Mountains. And, it's just like the habitat restoration for me has been something that I've stayed with, 35 years now. And
That's,
it's just
I believe that's Gazos. Tex, can you confirm?
Gazos
Yes,
Creek.
Gazos Creek.
And speaking of creeks,
No,
Speaking of creeks, there's San Francisco Creek. Still working on San Francisco Creek. A lot of really great stuff is
It'll
happening.
never stop.
It never stops. So yeah, pulling out more stuff out of the creek. Will Satterwhite went on to get his PhD in ecology. The schools group's doing great stuff. Laura, yeah, I think she still has that mattress too. It's like reduce, reuse, recycle, pulling stuff up out of the creek over the bridge. I mean, and this stuff is still all going on. I think that's Jim Johnson, right?
God
And
bless him.
Mike Hogan, right? Starting the habitat restoration work, and Jim started the native plant nursery in his backyard. San Francisco Creek, and then Arastradero joined to form the Stewardship Project. And so,
Looks like Ryan.
yeah, maybe that was Ryan. I saw Velma in there earlier. Susan Fizel working in the creek.
Hi, everybody. I just joined.
Oh,
Good
perfect
timing.
timing there. And you still have that hat, right? You still use that every day at work?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so mountains of trash. Sadly, still mountains of trash coming out of the creeks. But I think less and less and less of the really nasty stuff, which we got out early. And, everybody involved. Schoolies, young kids, families, old geezers like me. And then Arastradero, 600-acre preserve that the city kind of neglected, says, hey, it's a low-impact, low-use park. There's Susan in the early days. But it turned out it was really high use, high impact, and the city wasn't really taking very good care of it. And so we said, let's use that barn for great purpose. And the city and the neighbors said, no, we can't do that. Let's tear this all down. So instead of just throwing it in the landfill, we dismantled it. And I remember one of the rangers, when we were taking that cupola off of the barn, saying, I was watching you guys from a distance. He goes, I was sure you were going to kill people.
I just like this picture because it reminds us how big that damn thing was.
That was a big barn, 8,000 square feet. And the neighbors claimed that it was falling apart. I can tell you it was really hard to take apart because it was so well built. But look at this. We took it down, saved all of that wood. Some of that wood went as far away as Tonga. A lot of that wood went into the Gateway facility. Here's David and Jim Steinmetz and I up there. And, Cindy and I.
Was this when you proposed to Cindy?
This is when she actually said, hold on a little while, let me reevaluate. I think it was the hat. Okay, there's Jerry Hearn and Peter Nichols, who may actually be in the audience, or at least in the house with Jeff and Sue, and wearing my shirt. And so we had to take this down. That was the way the politics worked out. Joe Simidian was the man who brokered the deal. But we took it down, and then we started restoring those sites and reusing that lumber and taking care of the preserve. This is the house, 5,000 square foot house, swimming pool. Wanted to house interns there, but couldn't do that because of the politics. But look what we turned it into. We turned it into a beautiful facility. I was just out last week with Grassroots Ecology. That whole area now in the front is just choked with native plants. It's absolutely beautiful. Get out there, check it out. It's been a real success. And we're still pulling the same weeds, unfortunately. But that's like Tech says, that's a lifelong endeavor.
Yeah.
Keeps going on. Keeps happening. Instead of using plastic now, we're using cardboard and mulch to do sheet mulching, and it works a lot better in terms of restoring creek banks and the land around Arastradero. It's become the flagship, actually, program for Grassroots Ecology, really showing what we can do. Karen and I worked really hard with Greg Betts on this. Karen, I'm glad you're on the call. And everybody, schools got out. There's Tex in the background, David Cole. That teasel patch is really actually well under control now, which we never thought would happen. Miles Hopkins, which if anybody knows how to get in touch with Miles, would love to be in touch with him. We eradicated pampas grass from Rastrider Preserve. We eradicated broom. The rest of the weeds, well, they're still there. Back in the day, GPS, you had to carry around a big unit. Now you just have it on your phone, right? Times have changed, but still doing the same work. We did trail work back in those days. Really got the trail system back in shape. It's really much better now. So I think people would enjoy getting out there using that. My sister Lisa came out on Earth Days multiple times to help us with trails and pulling weeds and the Western bluebirds and doing the bluebird monitoring project. That stuff is still going on. One of my favorite pictures of Tex.
Birds fly, weeds die.
And Ilana, now living in Denmark, is a preschool teacher. And there's the fledgling birds. So a lot of this work is ongoing, will be ongoing. And grassroots ecology has taken up the mantle and grown this program through Actera up into grassroots ecology. So what we started at Bay Area Action, lives on in, just in really incredible ways.
Rock and roll hoochie coo.
Wait, that's not Shiva. No, that's a different dog. Okay. Yeah. So that is Arastradero.
That was Deo.
Deo. No, that was a coyote. Okay, so now Mark's moving me on to forests. Okay. And I probably took more time on Arastradero. Okay. Redwood summer, just amazing to get up and see those big trees and go to meetings and lobbying and again working with other communities and
out of the road, buddies, out of the road.
Dressing up in our suits and ties and going into meetings, trying to save Butano Ridge, John Scott. We coordinated with a lot of other people and we brought, I think, a lot of energy and creativity into, taking on much bigger issues than we could manage on our own, but we brought a lot to the table to do that. And Headwaters, now, I mean, what a success. Saved a lot of that. There's, some of the early days in the Headwaters Forest Project. I think the schools group heading up. People getting arrested, taking on risks, young kids who had never done anything like this before, giving them a safe space to do that, challenging the real powers like Charles Hurwitz. There's Will getting arrested. They still let him into grad school, so that's a good thing.
We'll see what happens now.
And massive crowds, a lot of people, we were a small part of those crowds, but we brought a lot of people. We put a lot of information out there. Mark did a great job with newsletters and then eventually getting us on the website and, really publicizing things, making it real so that people, could get behind it and really understand the science behind it. I don't know who that character is, but, we had a lot of fun and a lot of impact, I didn't spend as much time with the schools group, but, I know that was formative for so many of those people. And I got a chance to hike into Headwaters Forest before it was preserved. It was an incredible experience. So if you can, try to get up there. Okay. And now I think I have the opportunity and the pleasure to turn it over to Holly Million.
Kaslevich to you.
Oh, well, I stand
Hello.
corrected.
All right, so I'm kicking off the food. We're going to start with urban agriculture, which was a major program and one of my favorites. BAA actually had 3 community gardens. I don't know if you were aware of that. And this is the East Palo Alto Community Garden. And that's Denise Ladwig, I believe, in that photo. We had work days out there. This garden was founded by EPA Haas, and the land was donated by Jim's dad. There were hundreds of volunteer hours out there. It was tremendous community building, really great connecting with the people in the community of East Palo Alto, educating about food and the environment. It was wonderful because we could see locals growing their own food out there. There's participation in a farmer's market, and the kids sold produce to Flea Street Cafe in Menlo Park. We hosted many Earth Day and other fun events out there. There's Flea Street, one of my favorite restaurants. As you can see, the kids were very, very involved. There's a kid. I don't know if anybody was injured, but I think it all worked out okay there. As you can see, really beautiful produce, getting people to put their hands in the earth. This is the Midtown Palo Alto Garden. This was behind our new home, a short walk from there. People rented community plots. There was a lot of community outreach, many events back there. It was a wonderful location. It was a lot of smiles, really beautiful produce, also growing flowers. It just brings out the best in everybody working together out there. There was also a Mountain View organic garden that was behind the Mountain View office in the late 90s. That's a very big strawberry that we grew. We welcomed community groups out there, including the brownies.
Circle gardens.
What kind of brownies? That's what I want to know. We hosted workshops, edible landscaping, for example, composting, pond building. Sometimes there were beers. There were some fantastic murals. There was a mural with a Native people theme, local agricultural heritage. I think we're getting into some shots of that. There's the mural. It's amazing. It's very big, painted by the schools group and an Oakland artist in the early 2000s. It was still there as of a year ago. So fantastic.
Sweet.
Amazing. Then we get to eat, which was the brainchild of Laura Steck. We talked about connections between food and the environment. And there's Laura in her element. We created and curated a host of programs and events over the years. Here's the decadent dinner parties. Everybody loved these very much. Great food, fun theme, a little education slipped in when you weren't looking. I think some of the dating also occurred perhaps at those venues. The meals were designed to show how eating lower on the food chain can be healthy and better for the environment. Always really good cuisine. Sometimes, I don't know if those are lightsabers. I'm not sure what happened at that one. Dress-up occasions were had by all. Let's see. We're also getting to, there's so much stuff. Look at this. Just getting oriented. I think that's Peter. Peter's in there. There was some wine tasting occasionally involved. I think Laura introduced me to my first organic wine, if I'm not mistaken. There's Denise serving up some great stuff. There's Tex. A lot of familiar faces. Yeah, there's Susan. Oh, there's Laura with her toque.
Carolyn.
Getting her toque on. Yep. There's people in the serving line. Some fantastic. It was very sophisticated food. You know, Laura wanted to show that you can have high level cuisine, but also be mindful of the environment. Let's see. I'm not even sure. That's a Scharfenberger event. Sometimes there was some thoughtful conversations going on. Some of them were outdoors. There's just such a wide variety of decadent dinners. It was an amazing accomplishment. Everybody that was there. Thursday night dinner salons was another branch of this. Casual natural food meals at the Mountain View office and house. Just really a good time to socialize. Very casual. I think there was some Peaceable Plate lunchtime program for the local schools that was created by Laura with Laura Pitts, the Palo Alto Humane Society, Palo Alto Unified, and Ravenswood School District participated. We educated students in schools and families about the connection between healthy bodies and healthy environment. And we made changes in the lunch program. Amazing. Veggie burger taste test. Look at this. This was way ahead of its time. Students say yes. The students voted thumbs up for the veggie burgers. So that was a major change to their diet. Their teachers were involved. They got to start them early, right? So that's what we were doing. The Noontime Food Fest made the San Francisco Chronicle. In fact, a lot of the work that we did got tons of press. It was an amazing amount of coverage. Here's a great story that was done about Laura. I remember this one. I love that pose. Look at her. She's ready to go. Okay, now we get to Earth Day. Earth Day, very dear to my heart. That's where I got really involved with Bay Area Action. And I remember this so well. 1993, 1994. It was very family friendly. We did sunrise ceremonies for the events. Very colorful. There they are. And there's David with the drum. I remember that as well.
Every day.
And 93 was Stanford. And there were a lot of speakers. Here's Anna Eshu. We had musicians. We had John Robbins spoke. Lots of performances. These were big scale. There were concerts as well. Lots of hands-on education opportunities. I remember Cindy had a tank filled with fish she brought out to Stanford. It was amazing. I don't know how she did that. There were social gatherings. There's Abhai and Judith. Oh, wow. I haven't seen all these photos. It's so great to see this. Lots of social gatherings. Of course, we had food. And there's always food and celebration wherever we go. I'm marveling at all the familiar faces. This was public discourse, presentations and talks, panels, really engaging the community around these issues. We took them out into the field as well, doing some hands-on work for Earth Day as part of the festivals. Here's Cindy. Cindy was the hardest working woman in the environmental movement, from what I could tell. But we always made sure it was fun. And there's Susan and Meg. There they are, outstanding in their field. There were often themes. I believe we planted some trees. Oh my God, there I am, back when I could flex my muscles. Look at me. Look at Cindy. Oh my God. We did quite a bit of coalition building. I think we had over 100 organizations presenting at Earth Day 93, and Cindy had them out on a ball field. There was no limit. Youth education. We're going to go on. I think this is Ryan. I'm going to hand it over to you, Ryan.
All right, Sally onward.
Recording in progress.
So schools group started in 1990 and went through to the 2000s. I didn't join until late 1990s when I was at Los Altos High School. Don't actually remember how I found out about BAA, but I do remember being just very glad to have kind of a connection outside of my high school. And I think it was like really, for me, kind of the first thing that I did more directly in the community, and spent most of my time with BAA at the Mountain View house with that organic garden in the back. I remember a few of these faces. See Jenny Cade there in the back. We probably went there as much as we could after school and on the weekends to participate in as many of these events as possible. I know there were connections out into the Mountain View High School Environmental Club. If anyone else can speak in or interject here, please do, because the early 90s stuff, I was not there and can't really speak to. I can just share that this did feel like a safe place for us to find other adults. I mean, Peter seemed like a older guy then. I mean, he's an old guy now, but I just I don't know. Mark, you were probably like 25 then. I don't know. I just thought you were old 25 years ago too. But that's what it was to me. It was like this opportunity to meet other people. Again, it's like outside of my high school, just outside of my immediate community, and get to do cool stuff like this. Like I remember going out to Arrastradero, going on hikes, learning how to organize, learning about media and organizing, how to run meetings, the importance of being organized when you do campaigns. Of course, it kind of up levels. I see Dave Harris there on the bottom right. That guy was just kind of a force of nature too. There's me and wow, Sue, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. um, that it was, yeah. I think also for someone, like I was fairly capable in high school, but to meet other people who were even better at it than me was also, I think, just a really rewarding, really useful experience. So, um, again, schools group was an award-winning program, and I appreciated that with help, like we could go and kind of do stuff on our own. So like this Rock the Earth concert, Green Beat was another conference or concert that we put on. I see Jenny again here. This is EcoFest at Mitchell Park. This was probably also before my time because I don't remember much about this one, and these faces don't look familiar to me. If you have something to say here, feel free to speak up.
The schools group kept us all
Ryan,
young.
Ryan Phelan, and that's Maki Aoki there in the pink dress. Yeah. Ryan Phelan on the right.
Deep green.
Okay.
Deep green global training.
I do remember this. I remember feeling very humbled at this one. This was a 2-day conference with a bunch of speakers and workshops. I just remember being very impressed at the quality of the sessions, the intensity, I want to say, of the organizing. I think it was held at Stanford, if I'm not mistaken. I know schools group put it on. Like I was not really involved in organizing it at all, but I do know I attended, and I think I forget her name, but she was one of the
Anna
organizers.
Maria.
Yes, I think. And there's Olya. So Olya and I were Los Altos High School together, and we ran the environmental club, and she was kind of my co-conspirator in a lot of ways, doing environmental stuff at Los Altos High School.
It should not be underestimated what a difficult task it is to organize a 2-day conference. But when you've never done it before and you're 16,
yeah,
that's got to be a daunting task. But the schools group did this year after year after year, from the mid 90s through the early 2000s. And they did it mostly by themselves, just with a little help from the adults when they needed it. They picked the speakers, they contacted them, they booked them, they got housing for them, they raised money for it, they publicized it, they did everything themselves. And I think that was the key thing about the schools group. Almost everything they did was self-led. They did it themselves. They came up with the ideas, they chose the campaigns they wanted to focus on, they chose the issues they wanted to focus on, they chose the events they wanted to create, and we just helped them. That's it.
Well, Sue was a great support to all of that as well. I mean, there was some guidance and all that. I believe Ramona, Kat, Brennan, Neil, I think we got those trainings going, right? Wasn't that one of the things we started?
Yeah.
I feel like you started it.
Could be.
I saw Joe Simidian on a picture earlier. I remember that session actually, and I remember just being very impressed that he showed up and that he could speak so articulately about local environmental issues, and was like, wow, this is someone in public office who actually cares. And
Joe
still
was
remember that about him.
Great guy.
So Ramona and Lindsay, this didn't it grow out of the Envire Zest Fest?
I think that was the first one, right? And then we moved on to the Deep Green Global Training.
Right.
I don't remember if that was the last year most of us were around or the year after. The tracks are a little cold on the naming front.
I think there was a few Envire Zest Fests, and then turned into the Deep Green, and that went on for a number of years.
And it was a 2-day conference, but it was only 1 day of workshops and speakers and whatnot. And after a year or two, they turned the second day into hands-on activities. So
Right.
it was going out to a rastradero, it was doing a beach cleanup, it was taking a toxics tour with Yucca in East Palo Alto, and tree climbing even, among many other things.
And including speakers like Julia Butterfly Hill and Van Jones.
Yeah,
remember
and
that.
the schools group really was very innovative in the way it was created and the way it evolved over the years. And eventually other organizations started to hear about that. And the schools group was invited to Minnesota to give a seminar as part of another youth-led, youth-created conference for teenagers called By Youth for Youth. So the word really got around. So here's some of the campaigns.
Yeah. I can talk about Gap, Mark, but you do the others.
Well, I wasn't even there for the Mitsubishi stuff, but I do know a little bit about it. But if anybody who was there wants to speak up, please do. This was one of the campaigns that the schools group focused on in the mid 90s. Mitsubishi, of course, was logging mostly in Southeast Asia, considerable acreage of forests that should have been protected, in part because they were on indigenous peoples' lands. But like as what happens here in North America, corporations sometimes rule the day, not the people who live there.
Well, there was Ramona, and there's Will.
Another
So they were
task
there.
the schools group, another campaign that they led was getting the city of Palo Alto council to pass a selective purchasing agreement because of the Burma dictatorship.
Eventually overturned by the Supreme Court.
Is that right? We need to know more about that story. Another campaign focusing on the plight of indigenous people was the UWA campaign, protesting in front of Fidelity Investments in downtown Palo Alto, gathering many signatures on petitions and really trying to publicize the event by getting the press and the people walking by to take note. And Ryan, you want to take over on the Gap?
Yeah, I remember this one as being my first real hands-on campaign, going up to San Francisco, and also I think it was probably in downtown Palo Alto, participating in protests, I believe with Rainforest Action Network. I remember this just can't get enough, just can't get, someone had a boombox, like, and we would yell out money, money. I remember, I think I saw it in someone's hand right there. We had these little cards that spoke to both the redwood deforestation, but of course there's me. How about that? Also the labor practices. And we would put these little cards inside of the pockets in the stores, just like kind of very secretly, just go around and put the cards inside the pockets of these stores. Yeah, I went on to Berkeley, and the Haas Business School. There's a big thing like a Fisher Gate. I guess they gave a lot of money to Berkeley. Looks like that's Oya getting hand tied or something, maybe arrested. I'm not sure, but this would have been in Powell Station.
Yeah, I have to say that it's a strange sort of pride to know that the schools group members that you help organize an event choose to sit down knowing that they are going to get arrested for it. And I well up a little bit anytime people put their bodies on the line for the things they believe in. And of course, it made great press too.
Earth first.
Here's the schools group after getting bailed out.
I don't think I went on any of these trips, Mark, but I think you did, right?
Yeah, I went on a couple, led a couple, but on the early ones, I wasn't there. So Susan and Sue Nichols and Meg, I think, were among the people who might be able to speak to some of these. I think Jerry's on the call somewhere too. I thought I saw his name.
This was our trip to Ontario here, doing forest research in the red and white pine forests.
There were a lot of Northern California trips, but going to Ontario must have been a blast. And we did go into Headwaters Forest several times to really show the students what they were helping to protect.
I guess we're not going to talk about the time they got arrested there.
They got cited and released. Thank you very much.
Okay. And their parents were told.
We were standing next to Bonnie Raitt when she got arrested, though. We were very excited about that.
I was there. It was awesome.
Brett, was that when you decided you wanted to become a musician? When you were hanging out with Bonnie Raitt?
Yeah, she inspired me.
And then we got the elementary school kids arrested too.
No.
Made for good media.
Maybe we should get Sue Nichols to unmute and talk about the Yay program. Laura Steck mentioned to me once recently that there were many BAA projects that went unseen by the BAA adults, and this is one of them. The Yay project was in middle schools, right?
It's fifth grade, if I remember from what we did.
Yeah, it was elementary schools. We
it's-
were in its like third, fourth, fifth grade classes.
And this was it was initially a pilot program in the mid 90s, but then it went on and continued for several years and even into the Actera years. But I thought the coolest part about it was that it married the high schools group who went in as teachers, co-teachers with adults, with the younger kids that we never really reached out to regularly in programs, only at events like Earth Day. So this was very innovative too, I thought. There were courses organized and planned around San Francisco Creek, including both class time courses and in the creek walks and scientific research. And all the pictures I've seen seems like it must have been a lot of fun for those kids. I guess food in the environment and a school-wide recycling program and a unit on Arastradero were also either planned or executed. And then here's Laura showing up at one of the schools in the BAA EV, or one of the two BAA EVs, I guess, by that point.
Neil McNeil, I think, is on this meeting, and he was the one who led
was a
that
schools
conversion.
project. Neil McNeil, spearheaded that. He's here, I think.
And of course, Yay went on into the Actera years with Claire Elliott teaching. And so, Pete, we're handing off to you for our section on creative activism.
All right. Well, once again,
I'm sorry. Do you know anything about that? What?
I learned a little bit. I know Wendy's with us today. Earth Circus was a great partner at things like the Earth Summit Action. It was the Wimpy Earth Summit versus the successful Earth Summit. This was at the Federal Building in San Francisco. George Bush was worried about being a wimp, so we wanted to focus on the Wimpy Earth Summit. This was a demonstration at DuPont, producer of CFCs. A little die-in there. There's Chuck on the left. There's some of the gang. Wendy there on the right. Earth Circus. Wendy, you want to say anything about Earth Circus? Pretty kick-ass group.
Oh yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it was quite a journey. Kath, Meg, are you on? I'm sure you are.
They are.
Yep. Yeah. It kind of started with Earth Days and the Greenpeace Festival in San Gregorio.
Water circus.
Yeah, water circus. That's kind of where it all started. And then we started the elements. The elements went perfect with environmental causes. So, we had the water circus, the fire circus, which we took out to the Nevada test site. And then when Forest Forever initiative really took on and all the forest protests, we created a whole play, which we took to schools and little civic centers, got a lot of musicians involved.
Ancient Forest Medicine Show.
Yeah, good job. Peter, you remember so much.
You, Ryan, I'm not that old.
I am. Yeah, and that started in the forest too, which was very cool. It was a very organic process or circus. And then at the end, Meg and Kath led us to Ireland and England to take Air Circus, which was all about climate change in the 90s, as we are dealing with it now and forever. So in 95, we went to Ireland and England and took a whole theater group, dance troupe there, and educated in all kinds of places. It was wonderful. Good times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the phone book forest. There's Justine in the back right. Alona. This is up at the Red Vic in San Francisco during Earth Day. More forest fun. What's more fun than a forest?
When a spotted owl testifies in front of the Board of Forestry.
Oh, yeah. Very clever. Okay, and here's guerrilla activism. I think a few people wore that mask. I know Laura probably was the one on the right there. SUV ticketing. David Cole got that started. You get your SUV, there's a ticket, and it's educational. This was our very first human sign, Why Not Carpool? I see Kelly there. This was back in 1990, raising awareness for Beat the Backup. I think we saw that Impeach Bush this was the second Bush during the Gulf War to stop nuclear testing. I think these are a bunch of human signs that we're going through here. Devil Slide. We did get the tunnel there. Pretty huge victory. Schools group, Why Not Carpool? 9 years after the first one. Anna Maria saw a photo about it and said, hey, I want to do this. So she organized that. Save the Redwoods. Mo Hot Porn. Those schoolies.
Those schoolies. Well, they redeem themselves with some of these signs.
Very involved in Save the Foothills, Stanford, and as I mentioned just this last year, finally we got 99 years of protection. I think this might have been, yeah. More schoolies. There's David there on the right. Wage peace. We need to hold on to these signs because they come back, unfortunately, the need for them. This was a big event that Cindy had put on at the county building in Santa Clara. She had put a lot of effort into a pesticide ordinance. I think we made some progress on that. Truth Matters. Laura Stack pulled this together recently in front of Facebook.
2020, BAA coming back.
I think those signs are going to come back maybe on Thursday. David Cole might be picking them up in San Francisco. So the follow-up assignment will be, let's get out there and do some human signs.
If it ain't fun, it don't get done.
Bob put a premium on fun events, as you can see, just from the creative activism through the years. But we had a lot of fun, didn't we?
We
Still are, Mark.
And painting Denise. I saw that Denise is on the call. There's a little snuggle fest.
Oh, Jeff, I think you owe like $400 for that one.
What?
There's Kath. Festival for the Forest. This was in 1991. There's Jerry Brown on the left and David Brower on the right.
Pete, are you interrogating David Brower?
This is a really, really rainy day. It was a great day to be a tree.
You were the tree. I remember that.
Beth.
Yeah, that too.
That might be John Scott on the right.
I think it's John Scott for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's Rebecca Jakwa. She's in Scotland now, so it's about 3 o'clock or 3 a.m. her time.
And she's not on the call? What?
Jay. Is that Barb, maybe? Hard to tell. Looks like Laura, Susan, leading BAA in the late 90s. Volunteer appreciation, rocking out.
Bill Weber on the drums, maybe?
I think that's
Yeah, that's
Weber and
right. Bill
company,
on the
maybe.
drums.
Bill lives in Benicia now. He invited us to all come up and visit him. There's Amy Hui, who was a intern. The car wash. It doesn't look electric, but it is getting clean.
The pre-Rivian.
Of course, Susan's famous scrapbook. Always entertaining. There's Walt Hayes there on the left. We lost him recently. It's like Diane Joplin on the right, maybe Jason there in the middle.
Walt.
Oh, and Sue on the left. Surprise. There I am flashing a sign before it became cool. Started that trend. Holiday party, Jeff and Sue, black tie. And the school's group pool party. Dave looking pretty studly. There's Diane and Anna Maria.
Those days are over.
That's how we got them to stay still. That was the only way we could do that. Flume Trail bike trip. A lot of nice little getaways. Real community.
Flume Trail.
Very. Volunteer party. Oh, it's official, Actera. We had 7 dice with the letters, and people got to try to pick out what the name was going to be, and someone thought it was Rat Race. It was Actera. There's Bob High on the left, and Sibel. There's Chris Bowie in the back there. Looks like, is that Janelle, maybe? There's
Yes,
Jim,
Janelle
Susan,
Belly.
Laura, Jeff, and maybe John.
Yeah, Pete sporting the goatee.
I was pretty stylish back then. I was flashing signs, sporting goatee. This looks like it might have been. This is at Foothills Park. We had a nice little reunion there.
I got Don Bart sighting.
BAA's Legacy. I have not seen these slides. Let's see. Actera. We merged with the Princeton Conservation Center Foundation to become Actera. Big event on May 17th. I encourage everyone to put that on your calendar. Actera.
Yep. Coming up. Still doing great work.
I think the Innovation Award is going to go to the merger of PCCF and Actera, so don't miss that.
PCCF and Actera, what?
Raster
The
Preserve.
folks that don't know it, the history there is that the Peninsula Conservation Foundation formed as a outspring of Earth Day 1970, right? And they kept doing things in the background and things. And then 1990 came along and Bay Reaction happened, same way. So history repeated itself there. So it's only fitting that I think we merged.
Yeah, 10 years later, we decided we'd be stronger by joining forces. So there's Actera having fun. If it ain't fun, it don't get done.
Yeah.
Oh, and Lauren Weston is on the Zoom here. She's the executive director of Actera, doing a fabulous job. So say hi to her in the chat. Grassroots Ecology spun out of the Actera restoration work. Really fabulous group. Grassroots Ecology is doing amazing things. Even in my neighborhood here along San Francisco Creek. Come out and join us sometime. We're spreading across the world, procreating, I guess.
BAA is taking over the world.
Look at these wonderful people.
I just wanted to include a smattering of the example of how widespread and far-flung BAA members are today, and how amazing it is that they're still in touch and interested. I mean, I hear regularly from people now around the world who I met in Northern California, and that's pretty cool.
And Meg joined us from Uganda today. Fabulous.
Yeah.
Yay.
For example.
35 years. So this is a nice collage here. Mark, no wonder you spent all weekend working on this stuff. Very nice. Let's turn it into a poster. We'll make it a fundraiser.
Speaking of which, I want to thank Mark for putting in just a huge amount of work, time, passion, detail oriented to really, capture this history, because there's so much of it I don't even know, and I think we all benefit from the fact that this is going to be archived, and all the stuff that was like molding in our garage, it doesn't do any good there. And so the fact that you're capturing it, Mark, I think is really phenomenal, and I thank you very much for that.
Well, and what we saw tonight is just the tip of the iceberg. It goes deep, and it's going to go deeper if we can keep Mark employed. Intent.
Yeah. So I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody who's helped out on the slideshow and putting the event together tonight. Unseen members, including my girlfriend behind the curtain, Brian, who's back there monitoring things on another laptop. But I did want to talk a little bit about the History Project. Thanks everybody for joining in. I'm glad we got to celebrate both Earth Day and a fantastic 35th anniversary. But also we're here, at least I'm here, to celebrate kind of the birth of the BAA History Project in 2025. If you don't already know, if you haven't seen the many emails I've sent you, I'm spending the year putting together all of the archives, digitizing them, and making sure that the history of BAA and its accomplishments and the stories of the people don't get forgotten. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more here. So raise your hand if you learned something from this slideshow that you didn't know BAA had done. Yeah, right? There's a lot of hands going up. Well, even I learned things putting this together, and I continue to learn things in going through the archives. I put pieces of the puzzle together of the history. I myself got involved in late 93, early 94, so I didn't see the early years that Pete spoke of at the beginning of the show. I didn't witness any of those stories or events. So it was great to see pictures coming out of those archives about those early years. I'm going to ask you a few questions now. Let's see, can I unmute everybody? Unmute yourself, because I don't know if I can do that for everybody. If you want to answer some of these questions. Did you know that Bay Area Action helped start the Business Environmental Network, a well-known program of the PCF for years?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Did you know, now this is a more well-known story, that Abhay Bhushan helped save Xerox Corporation hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars by efficiencies in the enterprise?
Yes.
No.
Did you know that two guys biked across America to help raise consciousness about environmental issues and raise money for BAA?
Yes.
Yes, I did know that one.
Pay the long way.
Don't know that. No.
And
Who
did you
was
know,
that?
do you remember the Anne Frank exhibit that BAA hosted?
Yes. A long time ago.
Now, how many of you knew that BAA was one of the very first nonprofits on the internet? Back when the web was just a few tens of thousands of websites, BAA was there at the beginning. How many of you knew that BAA created Rainforest Action Network's very first online petition?
Know that.
How many of you knew that BAA raised money for Julia Butterfly, the woman who spent over a year in a tree, so that her ground support team could buy their first laptop?
I bought her a new rope.
Back when laptops were clunky.
And expensive.
How many people knew that?
I built her a toilet.
How many people knew that the BAA staff didn't really get salaries unless they basically raised the money themselves?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I know that one well.
Welcome to the club, Mark.
Yes, yes.
I think that's part of the BAA Railroad.
That's right.
If you can raise grants, you can get a salary.
Right.
Not any longer.
Now, does Ba remember when Metro, Silicon Valley's newspaper Metro, referred to Ba
Yes.
Best of 96 as the best fast-moving green spot?
Yes.
That's a weird one.
Talk about an award. I always felt like it sounded like we were smushed like a bug, but okay.
Yeah.
I think they meant it like a good thing.
Loved that.
Now, how many people would think that 99.9% of the photos and stories and information we covered in that slideshow is not anywhere on the internet?
I believe it. It's just the Father Sarah picture, and that's about it, right?
That's about it. There's a few photos out there that I've put up over the years on Flickr, but there's hasn't been a BA website in 25 plus years.
Wow.
It's an oral tradition.
It is an oral tradition, and it's a massive archive of papers and newsletters and banners and photos.
Look for a newer email from Peter.
Moldering in our respective garages and basements. So one of the things that I've done periodically through the years is, just like we, most of us, I'm guessing, have Googled ourselves over the years. I Google Bay Area Action every 5 or 10 years. And I've seen over the last 25 years, the results go from the first page to the second or third page of Google results to the fourth to the 50th, and then basically just disappear. And unless you dive really deep, a Google search for the words Bay Area Action will not get you the Bay Area Action we know. And I realized that the legacy. Oh, we're getting some feedback here from somebody. Can everybody mute?
Sorry.
I realized that the legacy of Bay Area Action and all of those hundreds of slides that we looked at tonight and all the other stories that we didn't even cover, all that information, that legacy, those stories, those fun times, those accomplishments, the wins, the losses, and everything in between could be lost to the history books. It will never get written into history if it's only on pieces of paper in my garage. And scholars of tomorrow, once we're gone, and let's face it, we're all getting older. Once we're gone, they're not going to be able to do the legwork to visit our homes and scour through our file cabinets. And what are they going to do? They're going to do a Google search. They're going to ask ChatGPT or something else. And if you ask ChatGPT or Google what Bay Area Action was, or more widely, who were the influential organizations of the environmental movement of the 1990s, you're not going to get answers that say Bay Area Action had this innovative program where they taught kids with kids, or they did X, Y, or Z. None of that is on the internet, which is essentially for today, it's our encyclopedia. It's sadly, but also in a good way, it's what future histories will be written from. So I thought, this is a solvable problem. We can digitize all the assets. I just need to gather the rest of them together, which many people on this call tonight have helped me do. Digitize them and put them up on the internet. And then once they're scoured by Google's bots and other things like the Internet Archive, this should be a more permanent record for Bay Area Action and all of its accomplishments. So that's what I've been working on for the past 6-8 months. And part of why I think it's really important is because, let's face it, this little project is not going to save the world or even the environment. And right now, we, writ large, face a lot of issues just in our country and the world that this little project is not going to solve. But I do know one thing. I don't want history to be written by those guys. I want it to be written by us. And so that's part of why I'm doing this project. So I launched the project this year, and it has 3 goals. The first goal is to digitize and organize all of the archives. The second goal is to find that permanent home so that when I die, nobody has to worry about what happened to that stuff that Mark did. It'll be somewhere permanent. And then third, I want to tell the stories between the cracks that never made it into the newsletter. I want to tell all your personal stories because BAA touched people fundamentally and changed many lives. I know this because it changed mine, and other people have told me the same. And I want to tell those stories, not just the what did project do and how do we quantify it, but how has this made you a better person now into your 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s? And so here's the progress of the project so far. I've collected and scanned and sorted over 10,000 photos. It's an ongoing process. I haven't sorted them all yet. But as you can see, there's a lot of stuff that's been coming out of the archives in the slideshow we showed today. Now, some of this work involves preserving really, really old pictures from the 90s, slides, film photos. You can see this one here had a lot of dust and speckles, and it's, it's not a great exposure. You could barely see her face. But I spend a little time on each of these really bad scans, cleaning them up, fixing the color, bringing back some of the saturation, making it look more lifelike. These are a few examples of that work that I can do with digital tools today that we couldn't even do 25 years ago. So now Laura looks like a person instead of a yellow person. And here's a famous picture from the 2000 era newsletter. You can barely tell there's mountains in the background there, but what if we bring them out and show the real color that was in that picture? And here's a really extreme example. Sometimes I get a photo that's just crap. And most people would throw this away and say, why do you even bother? Well, I want to try to save them all if I can. So I'll throw it through some engines and I can get a picture out of it most often.
Wow.
That was my file cabinet from Earth Day 1990.
An iconic.
You're taking a better picture.
I noticed that, Pete.
That's right. You probably had to look at it all the time.
I did.
So thanks to the assistance of people like Lisa Smirnoff, David Smirnoff, Sue Nichols, Peter, Laura, others who have sent me their own personal archives or scanned them and sent me digital versions, and the many boxes of stuff that I've had for years in my basement. I've organized mostly over 3,000 documents, and that's newsletters, that's flyers, that's programs from events, it's meeting notes like Scumby Notes, TM. It's all kinds of things that make up the history of BAA, even including events and programs and things that we don't even remember. I mean, I'm coming across projects and programs and events that I didn't even know existed. Like I said, I didn't know that the Business Environmental Network was started by BAA and the PCC in 1991. I heard about it in the late 90s, thinking that it had always been a PCCF program, but nope, it was started for Earth Day 91 with BAA. Now I've been OCRing and digitizing all of the newsletter articles so that we can put them online. And I've been building a new website. And I don't know if any of you have looked at it yet, but I soft launched it last week. It is a work in progress very much. But harkening back to something I said a little while ago about the history of BAA being just lost on the internet, we don't even have a Wikipedia page. And that's kind of pathetic. But we can build our own really uber Wikipedia. And that's what I aim to do, because you can't just go and make your own Wikipedia page Wikipedia pages have to cite sources elsewhere. And if there are no sources on the internet elsewhere that could be cited, there will never be a Wikipedia page. But if I put all the sources online, anybody can cite them. So that's what we're doing. I want to give you a little preview of the website and how it's organized here. So I'm going to come over here to another window, if I can find it, and show you some of that. Where is that window? Here we go. So here's the new website for the Bay Area Action History Project, containing all of the archives eventually, and a fraction of them so far. I've started by assembling as much information about the projects, campaigns, affiliates, etc. as I could find. But even all of what I have on my hard drive isn't on the website yet. So again, it is very much a work in progress, but I've captured lots of information here. So we have a whole section of projects, Arastradero, EAT, electric vehicle, green teams, the schools group, the recycling project, the phone tree, etc. Many of the ones we talked about this evening. Then we have a whole section of events, talking about all the Earth Days, Bike Week, Deep Greens, 100th Monkey, and other events. Then we have a section for campaigns, some of which we talked about tonight, and affiliates. Many people probably remember, but some others may not know, that BAA served as an umbrella for other organizations, sort of like an incubator for other small nonprofits. Some of them were entertainment-based, like Village Heartbeat. I'm also trying to put everybody in the database who comes up in the archives. So as I go through the newsletters, digitize an article, its author or the people mentioned in the article get added to the database. And it helps me build out a biography for each person, and also helps me link to the articles that they're mentioned in. So we have a section for people. And putting this data online enables us to look at it in new ways. I was fascinated to think about BAA in its longevity and how projects and events could be looked at as an infographic. So here are timescales from 90 to 2001 and beyond of BAA programs and events and campaigns, and how long some of them lasted versus how others were brief and transient. Another thing that I put online was a time.
Can't hear it, Mark, but we're saying wow a lot.
Oh, good. Another thing I put online here was a timeline, a very brief primer for anyone who doesn't want to deep dive into the site, but just wants to take a quick look at, so what was this BAA thing and what did they really do? So this timeline covers year by year some of the bullet points, the highlights, some of the things we covered here tonight and others that weren't in the slideshow. So we've got 91, we got 100th Monkey, Voting Earth Day in 92, the schools group growing, the Earth Summit, the EV project launch, Earth Day at Stanford, moving out of the downtown office, the first urban agriculture garden, various Earth Day themes, the launch of the Midtown Garden, the Anne Frank exhibit, the beginning of Decadent Dinners, the Tunnel Program campaign, the schools group winning a Youth Service Award, Bike Week in 95, the Planet on Your Plate being the theme for Earth Day 96, the Yay launch in 96, Earth Circus going abroad, as mentioned earlier, the EV project converting the rabbit, the Devil's Slide campaign, Forest for the Future, Earth Day 97, the PPLP program, the Arastradero program, Impact campaign, many, many other things. Again, even in that long slideshow we watched this evening, I couldn't cover it all. But as I digitize things, I'm putting them in the archives section. So everything from down here at the bottom, digital documents like BAA's articles incorporation will go online. So they can be part of the historical record and used by researchers and scholars into who knows what decade. But also all the articles that BAA wrote in the newsletters that were salient at the time, but that we've probably forgotten about, talking about everything from Redwood Summer and other organizations like Baykeeper, but also programs that lasted a little while and then kind of went by the wayside, like the media program. And then lastly, I want to
Dennis's graphics in there.
Yeah, and we got a lot of Dennis's graphics in there. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about the potential for the project and the archive based on the last 25 years of who's used the archives. So I told you every once in a while I'll Google Bay Area Action just to see what's still out there, and the results fewer and further between. But when I dive deep enough, I've been able over the years to find references to BAA used by other organizations. And I started putting these together and cataloging them because I thought it was important as part of the legacy. And so I was impressed to learn that some of these organizations used BAA's archives 25 years before I ever started this project, some of them. So let's start with the U.S. Bureau of Land Management reached out to me in 2010 and said, Mark, we found your photos of Headwaters protesters on Flickr. Can we use them for signage? And I said, well, what do you got in mind? And when they told me that the signage was to show that it takes public outcry and struggle sometimes to create a park, in this case, a reserve, that public acquisition happens through the public demanding it, I said, oh, hell yeah, I'm on board. That's why these photos are online, because I want people to know that too. So through my archive of old Headwaters pictures, which aren't just from BAA, they're also from Earth First and other organizations that I was affiliated with through BAA, they put together signage at the park in the education center and on the trail that shows, among other things, that it was through action and demands by the people that the park was created.
Yeehaw!
So I thought that it was pretty cool that the BLM, an organization that we don't always get along with, was asking us very nicely to use some of our stuff to educate the public. Now, speaking of which, the Headwaters photos that I've put online just as a hobby 15 years ago have been used a number of other times, including in last year's Giants Rising documentary, a fantastic film, which, because it's a documentary, is not in wide cinematic release. But if it comes through locally, you should see it. It's really well done. And it uses some of our photos from the BAA protest days when talking about the history of redwood preservation.
I think there's a couple of showings coming up locally in the Bay Area in the next month or so.
Yeah.
So just look it up, Giants Rising on,
Yeah. If you go to their website, they have their showings around the country. So Peter's picture of Rick Springer has been used by New York Magazine, among others. UC Berkeley used some of our photos in a Lawrence Hall of Science curriculum for high school students. Living on Earth, the public radio program, used a photo or two when talking about redwoods protections. The Rose Foundation and other nonprofits have used some of our nuclear and redwoods related photos. The North Coast Journal and several books have cited BAA's materials and information. And lastly, but definitely not least, we are in the Smithsonian with this little rad sheep.
No.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, 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 whoop. Anyone who can figure out how it got there gets a prize.
How did it?
I don't have the answer.
I still have one of those original buttons,
Is
which is like a piece of cardboard, right? With the
I think I do too.
the
yeah,
pin
with a piece of
glued
cardboard
on the
with some
back,
hot
right?
glue on the back.
This is circa 1990. This is a
But it
35-year-old
doesn't
button.
give it doesn't give credit to Janelle, who's here on the call.
No, I didn't do that.
It was
Oh, I
Mike
thought
Austin.
you did.
That drawing.
It was Mike Austin, as in Mike and Jing.
Oh, Mike, yeah.
Yeah, Jing did that. Although I did a lot of drawings, but I didn't do that one.
Wow, you're so honest, you know.
So the fascinating thing about all this is these citations and uses of the BA archives, photos, materials, newsletters, calendars, these were all citations in the last 25 years since BA went away. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what I believe could be useful to other scholars, students, teachers, nonprofits, organizations, filmmakers, journalists,
Rousers.
if we put the rest of the BA archives online, the other 99.9% that isn't there yet. And so that's why I'm doing the project this year, because I feel passionately that the historical record needs to be accurate, that if we let this stuff go by the wayside, we will all die and no one will know that BA existed. And only through a few stories passed down to our children will it exist in anyone's memories. And that to me is a shame, because as we saw from those 400 slides, BA accomplished a lot. So I want to thank our donors so far to the project. If I can get back to the slideshow here. Because I've had some people really help out. We've raised so far a little over $8,000, but the goal for the project is sizable because I'm spending all year doing this and it takes time and money to do this project. So I want to thank my fleecy philanthropists, Mr. Peter Dreckmeyer, Mr. David Smirnoff, for kicking me off in the right direction and really helping me start the program off. And I want to help my unique donor, Jerry Hearn, and my sheer geniuses, Abhai Bhushan, Ryan Buckley, David Cole, David Evan Harris, Claire Kremen, Kate McNeil, Will Satterthwaite, Lisa Smirnoff, James Steinmetz, better known to you as Jim, Julie Weiss, and David Wise. And I want to thank my flock favorites, Catherine Armour, that's Catherine, not Kathy, Marianne, Scott, Joel, Lindsay, Beth, Kai, Hillary, Wendy, Susan, Rich, Kristen, Eileen, Felicia, Mary, Deb, Denise, Ellen, Debbie. Thank you so much for kicking in. And lastly, Karen, Uta, Debbie, Mike, Eric, Kat, Carolyn, Susan, thank you all, because you're making this happen. And it's going to be a long process for me to finish, but I've made considerable progress so far. So if you can make a donation this evening, I hope you can do it if you haven't already. I hope I've convinced you that this is a worthwhile project, that it's worth setting the historical record straight and making sure that future scholars and everyone else has access to the legacy of this fantastic organization. And so with that, Laura Steck said she would help me finish up our evening with a little fun, not 20 questions, just 2. And so If everyone wants to unmute, this is your time for participation. I want you to share either your favorite BAA memory or 2 words that best describe Bay Area action.
I'm going to
Go
quick share taking my grandmother to the 100th monkey with David, and seeing the just everything, the fire circus and all. But my grandmother in her 80s went to the 100th monkey.
That is so cool. Wow. I did not know that until you mentioned that to me recently, or maybe David did, but one of you two mentioned that to me recently. And that is a story that I would like to tell on the website.
I'll find some pictures and write something up for you.
Oh, good, good. Who else? 2 words to describe BAA or your favorite memory.
A fun bunch.
For sure.
Brad sheep.
Somebody had to say it.
Right over here.
About action.
Yeah.
BAAla.
Infectious hope.
Life-changing.
Like an infectious hope. Optimism.
Teaching a classroom full of high school students how to dumpster dive and live without money.
Oh, yeah.
That's more than 2 words.
It was a memory.
Okay, it's okay. That's the memory, right?
This is Eric Lindblade. For me, it was being introduced to Bob by Jason Ulibarri, and unfortunately, Jason's not with us anymore. And not to be a downer, but I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
What happened to Jason?
He had some problems, but anyway, I just want to think of the great times that Jason and I had at BAA, because he's the one that brought me in, and I stayed in contact and hung with him over the years. So anyway, great people, and miss you, Jason. So I just wanted to say
Get the Bobby going.
6-pack. Jason was part of the 6-pack.
The memory of the energy of what it was like to be there at the beginning, with the Clean Air, Clean Water Act and Earth Day and BAA and CalPERG, and just everybody meeting in that basement launch area, in the lower meeting space. It was just magic.
BAA Underground.
Yeah.
I remember those crazy dance parties that we had underground there.
Yeah.
I remember cutting the day of high school, the day of my junior or senior prom, and going out to Sacramento to testify in front of an endangered species subcommittee hearing. So.
Wow, awesome. Put that in the archive.
Yeah.
Although the garden project was so wonderful, really the most memorable things for me were when we took the kids out into nature, because these kids, living in East Palo Alto, a lot of them, their parents working all the time, they never really got out to go places. And so taking them to the beach was just kind of amazing to see them, going to the beach, going to a river, going hiking. And these kids that kind of had a tough exterior would just completely change. It was just so beautiful how being out in nature and natural settings just softened them and brought out the playful nature in them. And that was just such a beautiful thing to witness.
They loved you, Denise.
Yeah.
They loved me because I took them places.
You had a cool van.
And that crazy VW
Smiled a lot.
bus. Awesome.
I remember Pete walking into Decadent Dinner coated in amaranth. And then I remember at Cheryl Campbell's house, the Sing and Cook Italian party. You were all coming into the kitchen and we were serving you. And there was a woman singing opera, Italian opera, as I was sauteing greens with garlic. And I felt that was, it was such a beautiful opportunity to learn about food and environment without being clogged over the head, with the doom and gloom. Anyways, it's, yeah.
Hillary Barber here.
a lot of too many funny memories and wonderful memories. I'd say 100th Monkey for sure. And then I remember one stealth night, Scumby, Pete, and I postered in downtown Palo Alto, George Bush with the sound of saying liar. And for years and years and years, in certain places, you'd still see these remnants of it. They lasted a very long time.
Yeah.
I don't know about that action.
It was still.
And he was such a tame liar relative to that.
Right?
Relatively.
There was a guy named John Haynes, who some of you might remember, who worked for Sam Francis, the artist. And we had access to this wonderful big color photo machine. So we made a whole bunch of those liar posters, and we took them to Nevada to the test site. And we'd give out one with like instructions. Here's how do you create wheat paste, make a bunch of copies of it, put it around. And people started seeing them in other areas. And I know that Laura had a copy of a postcard we did, Stop Nuclear Testing, that she found in Colorado. They had photocopied it, so it was much lower quality, but they'd created their own postcard.
Cool. Oh gosh.
I want to give a quick shout out to Rip King, who I know a lot of us remember, and I would hope that somehow we could get some of the video that he shot over those early years.
I still have that. I have the video of what he made. He made that
Yeah.
video. I have it somewhere.
Getting there from here.
Yeah.
Janelle, I just
not really.
Have that?
We have a video that he produced about Redwood Summer.
Yeah.
I need to convert that, and I've got a bunch of his interviews with Rick Springer from right before the Broken Eagle, and then he was able to sell some footage to the local stations because here's the guy who everyone thinks is crazy, and he's actually pretty smart.
Yeah.
So we'll work on that, Jeff. Make a big donation so that we can make that happen.
Yeah. Pete and I have been digitizing a little bit of what we have on video, but it's a little more complicated and expensive to do. But Pete, didn't you say you have access to a bunch of RIP stuff?
Not a bunch, but a few things.
Okay. And Janelle, was that you saying you had that other video? Because I've been looking for that one.
Getting here from there, that video?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it somewhere. I know I have it.
If you can find it and get it to me, that'd be great. Because I've been looking.
Of course you have it.
Mark, I've got like 30 copies of that, so I'll send you one.
Oh, okay. Good.
It'll be like a belated Earth Day gift. If anyone else wants one, if you still have a VCR, let me know.
Yeah.
Couple other quick memories is just the laughter and the sense of play. And it felt like I'm a deadhead, and it felt like the birth of things in Palo Alto, where it's all about the participation. It's not a person leading it. It's a more equal sense of everybody's really doing this together. And then when it was time to combine with PCCF, what that process was like, how thoughtful that was, how well-intentioned it was. And it felt like we were really caring with real care and concern the legacies of both groups. And it felt like the wise thing to do. And to have been a part of that was it was an honor. It's an honor to be a part of this area that started the whole open space movement, and Post and Midpen, and just, this is the birth of it, is from this area. So thanks to everybody for being a part of that. Just gratitude, real gratitude.
Yeah,
I think there's a suggestion someone put in the chat about removing the share so that we can see each other a little bit better. Are you done with your video, with the slides?
You can just go to meeting up on the top and you can see just everybody.
Oh, yeah, that'll work too.
Kind of piggybacking on that last person's comment, the fact that there's 10,000 photographs. I mean, I was just always impressed by how many hours people devoted to whatever they were working on. And I remember we went and joined a group over at Half Moon Bay that was removing pampas grass. And I could not believe the devotion of those people because I don't know if you've ever seen a pampas grass bulb, but it was like 4 feet across. I mean, it could take like 3-4 hours to take one plant down. But I just remember being so touched by all the hours that everyone put in.
Well,
Will was the master.
Yeah. So that's one of my memories is I was working at Stanford in the early 90s, and I would take my bike and I would ride it down to Palo Alto, and then I would spend the rest of my day just slogging away on the recycling hypercard database that Bill Weber and I were building, just
Large.
calling disposal places and saying, do you take this? Do you take that? Can you tell me how to get this, get rid of this? And just hours and hours. But it was so gratifying to be doing something in that vein.
I remember going to the, this is a little different. It's more of an image, but I remember going to the Monterey Aquarium, and they said that the jellyfish has no central nervous system, but if you watch them, they just move really beautifully. And I felt like that was the image of Ba. There was really no central nervous system. Nobody knew what anybody else was doing, but somehow it all flowed together and worked.
That's because we're all connected.
Right, Tex.
I really liked how learning about one thing in BA would lead to another and another and another. And I spent a weekend over a big basin with a professor from Humboldt or something. I don't remember his name, learning about marbled merlets and getting up at 5 a.m. to see them. It was great. So just totally expanded my understanding of what was going on out in the world and how I might be able to help a little to keep some of it there.
And what a great sense of community in the fact that we all came together and people had some little platform and we would all get behind it and go do it with them. And what a great place that you could join a group like that and come up with your own little platform and have it executed by just like-minded people who wanted to share being good.
Hey, Kelly, can you take a minute
cool.
to say what you're doing in Haiti?
Well,
I'm going to time you. 1 minute.
you guys might have launched me. I went to Haiti after the earthquake and started a school for kids who would otherwise grow up to be illiterate adults because about 60% of Haitians don't read beyond the 6th grade level. So Peter's the president of our board, and we've been running for 15 years. And we take kids between 9 and 12 who have never been in school before, and we put them in a fast track program to graduate 6th grade, and then we scholarship them through secondary school. We now have 3 kids who are in university and 135 kids who have graduated our program, and we're supporting about 92 kids, and there are currently 72 more kids in the program.
Woohoo! Yeah!
Amazing. So
And
exciting.
you see, we all have platforms and people come together. And Peter jumped in and said, yeah, I can help you with that. And it's amazing. It's so great. And thank you for being the model of that. Bay Area Action to me was the model of that whole experience.
And Kelly's story, I only know a little of that because I follow you on Facebook. But these are the types of things that many of BA people went on to do as either their job or their hobby. And so many of us, we haven't shared those stories in the last 25 years. I want to be able to tell some of those stories too, because my guess is if we asked everybody, they've all done something to continue the work of BA.
Yeah, I want to jump in and say something then too, because, similar for me, I took my Bay Area Action experiences and I brought it here to Uganda, which is not easy, but I couldn't have done it without what I learned from all of you.
Wow.
Thanks for representing us in Uganda, Meg.
I
You're doing
know,
awesome
it's so
work.
crazy. You're so like,
I feel
wow.
the same way. And I mean, I didn't take anything to Uganda, but I feel like I learned so many lessons and things from BAA. I mean, I was fortunate to be asked to serve on the board, the council for a number of years. And I've done that with other nonprofits since. And I'm sure all of us took our experiences from BAA and the things we learned on into other realms of our life. I think it was a great place to learn things. And I know from the schools group folks that I've kept in touch with that they've gone on, many of them, to do amazing things that I am so proud of them on their behalf, on the things that they've done. And I want to be able to tell their stories too, because I'm sure there would be a lot of interest in those.
How many people here were on the Bay Area Action Council at one point or another?
I was.
Me.
Yeah.
I think most people were. Kind of everyone had a little chance to help lead the organization or a program.
Yeah,
So,
and
right.
you know, and I took that experience, and like today, I'm the president of the American Chamber of Commerce here in Uganda. So again, you know, we all took some of our experiences and just have been able to grow ourselves and grow other organizations as well.
I'm thinking of some of the incredible characters that I got to meet. Rip King, thank you so much, Jeff, for mentioning Rip. He was one of my favorite people, and then he died like out of nowhere, right? I mean, it was just like what a tragic loss. But also Mark Dubois, like one of my favorite people. Of course, Walt Hayes. But then also I'm thinking of the legacy in area. I'm thinking of Pete McCloskey. You know, he was one of my professors at Santa Clara, and or Joe Smidian, and just the leadership we've had in our area. And so I don't know if anybody, I'm just feeling the people who are no longer with us,
Yeah.
you know. And so in that homage, if anybody can name someone who's like your environmental hero or something like that,
They're all here
just
still with us. They'll keep us going.
Cheryl Campbell,
Mary
Bella
Daisy.
Marino, Rick Springer.
Kay Hayes, who we just went to her memorial just the other day.
oh, that's right.
Wife.
Carol Campbell.
Yep,
Hmm.
Cheryl.
Jason Ulibarri.
Frank and Josephine Duvenek.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
my environmental heroes are right here on this Zoom.
I love it. I love it. It's just a little ancestor thing. Like my grandfather was a conservative Republican, but he co-founded the League to Save Lake Tahoe. You know, I mean, frickin' Nixon started the EPA. You know, it's like, and we have a lot of conservative history in our area. San Mateo County was represented by Republicans until the last 25 years.
Well,
When you need their
Pete
strength and
McCloskey,
courage,
Becky Morgan.
you reach out to them and they will help you. I promise.
Yeah, good people. Just
I
good
saw
people everywhere.
Evan Roush was in some of those photos too. He died, actually, it was like the same week that Chuck's wife, Jade, was killed in that car accident.
Oh.
That was 1996, I think.
Wow. And
They're
Tex,
not
what a
gone.
character.
They're here with us. Just in a different portion of our world.
Peter, I was thinking about your dad. Your dad is awesome.
Man, we created a little website upon his
I
passing.
love it. Yeah.
His memoir is up there.
He lives on in Peter.
Yeah. What a guy.
I used to think he had a corny sense of humor, and now I'm realizing it was quite brilliant since I picked up a little bit of it.
How come you're so corny then?
Chip off the old block.
Fruit doesn't fall from the tree.
Yeah, John Garner's come to mind
enjoyed
too.
your little inbursts throughout the meeting, keeping us on our toes.
Is most everybody still in the Bay, or did y'all migrate elsewhere?
Tennessee.
New Mexico.
Oregon.
I'm up in Plumas County on a game refuge, the Smith Peak Game Refuge, although I'm going to be selling my house soon because it's not refuge and quiet enough anymore. So too many Yellowstones out here. So I'm going to go deeper.
Rock on.
Yeah.
Is that in the state of Jefferson?
You see the signs around, but I just try to just enjoy the beauty of it all out here in Plymouth. It's just gorgeous. If you guys can ever get out to the Lakes Basin area, it'll blow your mind. Most people don't know about the La Sierra, but it's gorgeous out here.
Let's keep it that way.
It's my family got here in the 1800s, so that ship kind of sailed for us. But come on out, man, it don't matter. there's enough people out here. California's already been discovered, so come on out. Enjoy it.
Are you by Sardine Lake or?
I used to go. I know the people that have the cabins at Sardine Lake, old family friends. But I'm about 30 miles from Sardine, probably. I'm 2 miles from Lake Davis. If you're into birding and you want to buy a house on a game refuge, give me a call. Sorry for the plug.
Well, I lived in New Zealand and Australia for 5.5 years, but family stuff brought me back.
Beautiful.
If anyone wants to see the beauty of the Southwest, you're welcome in my home.
Oh.
Well, I'm in
Mark, I see it's a little past 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
I think it sounds like maybe there will be a call for us to see, is it called Rising Giants?
Giants Rising.
Giants
Rising. Yes.
Maybe those of us who are local here in the Bay Area can get together for that.
Yeah.
And let's keep in touch. This has been really wonderful.
You guys ready for a song?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here
Where are
we go.
you? Show your picture.
Yeah.
Where
Well,
are
we need
you?
to see your
Ted?
video.
I'm in Tennessee. I don't know how to show my picture.
Where in Tennessee are you?
McEwen,
McEwen.
near Waverly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Here we
Can't hear
go.
your guitar though. Oh, there you go. Okay, so
I want that. I want what
we loved it, but we
Chris
couldn't
had.
hear it very well.
What is that? Where's that? Choose adjust background.
All right. Well, with that finale,
Restoration is what we're needing. Eagles and the owls, they should be breeding. The sound must spawn, or they will soon be gone. Odds are they will live to see tomorrow. Restoration plan secret Asian man. Hey, we're giving you your name back and healing your world. Tex, he leads a life of leisure. When he spots his suits, he does not measure. With every bow he makes, another smile he breaks. Odds are you will eat with him tomorrow. Yum, 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 yum. Restoration plan secret Asian man. Hey, we're giving you your name back and healing your world.
Where's that painting?
okay, who's next? I think we're moving into the talent show part.
Thank you, Ted. Was he still going? Okay.
That was awesome. I love that song.
How do I get this off?
Rock on, bad black sheep. Woohoo!
Well, Mark, thank you again for all you've done, all you will continue to do. I encourage everyone, be generous and then double your contribution. It's, this work is challenging. It's a lot harder nowadays. There are so many fewer activists just because the cost of living is up and society has changed. And I remember working for BAA and thinking, it was like, why am I doing all this for such a pittance? And it's like, because it's an incredible community and we're making a difference. And I'm sure Mark is wondering what he got himself into often. But if we all contribute some and try to be really generous, we can help make him a little bit closer to whole. Regardless, he's going to end up contributing as much as all of us combined. That's just the way it works. And we really appreciate you, Mark.
Yeah, I think already he's done that. So, yeah.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, I hope everyone will chip in whatever you can and what you think it's worth. And I hope I can continue the project through to the end of the year and really get everything up on the site and accomplish all of these goals.
I know you're going to do it, Mark. I have faith in you. I can't
do it.
afford your price, but you're priceless, and everybody's going to kick in, and it's going to work. Rock on, Bay Area action! Yoo-hoo!
Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm so happy that everybody could come and watch the slideshow tonight.
It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Great to see everybody.
May 1st.
Be well, everybody.
Bye, David. Good seeing you.
Love you all.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Peace. Everybody.
Take care, Tex.
Vocalize, please. Stop these wars.
Yeah.
Wow.
Be
Hey,
continued.
Mark. Hey, Mark.
So
You had so
powerful.
much love on the chat about your work, but just to say it out loud, super impressed with the quality of what you've done. I mean, I was anticipating something great, but you just you scroll through the year and you show exactly in sequence. I mean, just over the top, man.
Hopefully,
Really
more
well
just
done.
Thank you.
Scratching the
I
surface.
appreciate
Just
it.
scratching the surface.
Yeah.
And Mark, there's a few people I know that
Yes, worldwide protests.
get in touch with. So if you've got the
I
recording,
don't know what's going on locally. Is Tesla or is there?
I think they're well being.
Yeah, we've recorded this, and if it's successfully recorded, gonna post it for those who couldn't make it. I know several people inquired. Bill Weber said he was on his way to Mexico. Olia Milinkaya is in the middle of Australia in the outback. Several other people said they wish they could make it but couldn't and asked if I was recording it. So hopefully the recording worked better than some of the other Zoom features earlier this evening.
Hi to all of you guys. Wow, what an impressive organization. I can't believe how much we did. I'm really in shock. There was so much I learned tonight. Wow.
Lars said, keep giving it your love into the food, baby. Yeah.
You're making it happen. We're still making it happen, Tex.
Hey, Mark, please thank Brienne for her work behind the scenes.
I will. Thank you.
Bless you all.
Time
God
to
bless
curtain.
us all. Let's bless it. Blessed be.
Yeah, blessed be. Blessed be.
Thanks,
Happy
Rob.
Earth Day. Happy Earth Day.
Guys are awesome.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth
Happy Earth
It's
Day.
all about action. It's still all about action, baby.
You will, Batuka.
Don't be a sheep on a leash.
Peter, a poker game. Peter, poker game.
Yeah, virtual. Can we trust you?
Oh, deal, yeah.
Oh, Eric, that's the fourth four of a kind you got in a row.
You always won, man.
Rock on, bar.
I never beat you, Peter. You always beat me playing poker.
Love you all. Peace, love.
Love everybody. Peace.
Bye for now.
That was great. That was great.
Bye for now.
I don't want to go.
We're
Hey,
still
Cedric,
here.
Susan, and David.
We'll all be with
Hey,
you.
Chris.
We're all
Good seeing
together.
you.
It'll never
Good seeing
stop.
everybody.
Trust me.
What a treat.
I'm a creek doctor.
Yeah, this was more fun than I thought it was going to be fun, but this was really inspiring.
Good.
You know,
Totally.
the next 35 years is when it matters, right? May we really do it for the next 35 when it's game time.
Next 35 days.
Everything
Till
is
the
at
sun
stake.
explodes.
This is it.
Till the sun explodes.
Yeah. Tex, I love
I
you,
got on
man.
late because
I love you
I
too.
forgot.
I love all of you.
I'm so glad you kept your audio on the whole time. I kept hearing you do your thing. Oh, there's Tex. I love it, man. That was awesome.
Rock on, Tennessee. That's where I'm at, Jed.
C-SPAN has been running Senator Gaylord's 1990 interview. And so I recorded it, and I highly recommend people listen to his reflections of where he thought we were at in 1990 compared to where we are now, and in how many ways we've made incredible progress. But the stuff he thought was just kind of common sense, what would happen.
Yeah.
You know, it's this polarity of misinformation, disinformation, all of the bad actors, the ones who, are paid to, tell lies. And how do you work with that? And has anybody heard of the triad of fulfillment that Dr. Vivek Murthy said right before he left? So he started this 20 years ago. So I'm part of this group called Thriving Together US. Triad of fulfillment. Amazing connected relationships in your community, being of service to make a difference, and having meaning and purpose in your life. That those three things, when those are lived by having places and spaces and connections like BAA, right, for sure, that's how you live the triad of fulfillment. And David Brooks just came out with an column. Everybody see that David Brooks column?
No.
Full on call to the full on call. And he's part of a group called Weavers. And weavers.org has got a network. Go check them out, man.
Yeah.
They've got every neighborhood down to the census tract. So like 74,000 neighborhoods. And it shows you what your rating of connectivity based upon what's your intention to connect, what is your actions to connect, and what's your infrastructure for connection. And our area is like in the 28s and 29s in our area. That David was the keynote at Joint Venture Silicon Valley Network's State of the Valley Summit a couple months ago. And so he's part of this network that we're working with. It's called the Better Together America. And so the whole point is, are we going to thrive together? If you say yes, well, now you're in. And we're going to help you in your neighborhood, in your red district that's suffering. And we're going to bring resources and training and projects and leadership stuff so you can live that triad of fulfillment in zero blaming or shaming or naming. That's what Joe Simidian did after Obama got elected twice and then Trump got elected. Joe spent a whole summer and went to counties that went for Trump after 2 times for Obama. And he just went and listened. And he came back. Did anybody go to those presentations that he did? He came back and he just said, people have been left behind. They had their backs turned on them and they're pissed. The system's failed them. And so zero enemies, pose no enemies. That's one of the great things the Foundation for Global Community taught. Pose no enemies. Everybody who's out there who's suffering, anybody who thinks that invading the Capitol was a righteous thing to do, I have empathy for them because they believe something that they thought was true. Right? So we let go of judgment and we just go have fun and meet people and make some food together and plant some gardens. Right? That's what I learned at BAA.
Yeah.
And so I love you guys, love everybody. I spoke with Walt Hayes' family at the celebration of his life about this, and they said they're in to take that network list that they had for that gathering. And everybody who is part of Foundation for Global Community, this right here is from FGC. One humanity, one spirit, one earth. That's what it's all about. And so that's the spirit of Peter Dreckmeyer, one of my favorite people, everybody who's hung around here. And the trifecta, the CS and Davids in the room. Right on. Thanks, everybody. That was awesome.
Thanks, Chris.
Wait,
thanks
is
for reminding
that
us of the Foundation for Global Community, too. They were an occasional partner of BAA as well.
And spent everything, sold everything so they could invest it all because your house is on fire, your family's in it. What are you going to do? Do 5% or do 125%? Mm-hmm. And they're my heroes, man. Yeah. Anyhow, some exciting stuff. If things go well, what's landing in our little region out here is going to lead the way, guys. Things are going well. Things are going well. Yeah. Awesome. By the way, to see Mike Hogan, to see that photo. Oh my God. Does anybody remember Mike Hogan?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
What a character. I love that guy. Oh my God, to see that photo. Wow, this is classic. His
Hogan's
son,
Heroes.
anyhow.
Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah.
Nothing brings back the memories like a slideshow, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean a level of expertise that is just, I mean, Mark, when we get a budget, I'd like to see what it would take to hire you to if you would want to track something from its inception and actually help be an archivist for that.
Possibly.
Where are you based?
I'm actually in St. Louis, Missouri now.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Smack dab in the middle.
I look forward to the marathon slideshow where we can talk for 10 minutes about each slide.
Yeah.
I tell you, like I said, it really brings back the memories when you see the pictures. I uncovered photos when putting the slideshow together that I had forgotten I'd ever seen. And then I'd come across a newsletter where we used that photo and I said, oh, I guess I had seen that photo. So even my memory is being jogged by putting this project together.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're so young, your memory should be better than that.
I'm 56. I'm not that young.
What are you saying about the rest of us? No, I just turned 60. It's a bit of a shock.
But
I
that you
feel
made
way
it?
over 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, it only gets better though, right? Right? Come on.
It starts to get worse and worse.
Oh yeah, parts of it maybe.
Only gets better. I mean, I'm in the civic engagement community building, large multi-stakeholder, hundreds of people in a room. And you could have a group of people come in and argue and yell and scream because that's the attitude of how it was framed. That's what it was designed for. So everything's about how you frame something, the intentions that you set, and then the process that people will trust. And so whatever story I'm going to tell is the one that exists now today. I saw this great quote the other day that because my parents are in their 80s and they're like, oh, life is going by so fast. I go, what do you mean? Every hour is like a lifetime. Every day can be like a lifetime. What's your attitude? That's the one thing you can control, right? What's the one thing you got power over is your attitude.
God bless you all. Good night.
Good night.
Hey, David.
Nighty night.
Yep.
Good night, Tex Wave.
I'm going to drop too. Good night.
Awesome. Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, everybody.
Dennis.
By the way, I go to sleep at like 2:30 or 3 o'clock every morning, so this is like still early for me. So if you guys want to,
yeah, me too.
Hang out more.
It
It's
wasn't
great.
until everybody's pictures got big that I could see that the rad sheep on the couch there made it. I don't think that sheep has an RSVP. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was wondering what that was. That's classic.
Wondering if we should have sent that one to the Smithsonian to go with the button.
Yeah, we should. There used to be 3 sheep. I think that's the small of the 3.
Okay, or can you digitize it, Mark?
3D scan.
I one of the photos I couldn't fit in the slideshow was when Anna Maria, I can't remember why, had to take the sheep home and clean it over the weekend or something with her friend because I don't know, it got dirty somehow in some high school shenanigans. What was the story behind that, Susan?
Well, I think we just assigned her to do that for some reason.
Because she was an intern and you could do that.
Yeah. Intern abuse, I think.
Hey, David, I'm curious, what's the worldwide protest on the 1st? Is that?
That's,
I saw some.
Yeah, that's May 1st. It's coming up through a bunch of different groups, I think Indivisible and 5051.
Yeah, check out indivisible.org.
And Hands Off. They're probably all working on it. It's the next big protest. And it'll be worldwide because it's Labor Day in most countries.
Yeah.
And they got one target.
Yeah, May Day. Yeah. I'll be in Denver for a gathering. We're part of a group of folks. It's the Bridge Block Build World. And the Inter-Movement Impact Project is like the leaders of the national groups that are all meeting. And some folks who ran the democracy programs at USAID are a part of it. And they're starting a whole campaign called the Hands On Project. And so instead of it being against something, what are we for? And to try to steer all that energy into something that can make constructive impacts and differences and really shift the framing to going into a community and doing hands-on and like literally sweeping through with like thousands of people. And what can you do with that kind of energy or that kind of time? Yeah, I mean, you need everything. Don't get me wrong. You don't stop doing the big statement stuff. But also, we're coming up on the 33rd anniversary of the uprisings in LA, and so that's coming up at the end of the month too. And I remember that all happened the first couple of years that BAA was happening, and what an impact that was of the social justice piece of this, and just we're pretty much, I think we're pretty much all white people who are on the call, and so I just really also want to honor that and call into place when you talk about something that's truly environmental social justice, the communities that we have here in East Palo Alto. And I love seeing the community garden in East Palo Alto. That was awesome. And all the comments about what that was like, that's a big part of this, right? Is we live in a valley where the Gini coefficient is like 80, which is a separation of wealth, and in the country it's like 50, which is high, but the Bay Area is just crazy, and to be in counties where the freaking median home price is $2 million. I mean, in the world we're living in, right, is how do we deal with those elements too? So by the way, I'm not running for office. I would never run for office. So it's not like I'm. I don't do that.
All right, guys. Well, it's
Yeah,
pretty late
thanks
here
everybody.
in the middle of the country, so I'm going to have to close it down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
thanks
really
for hosting,
appreciate
Mark.
everyone showing up.
Thank you
Yeah,
for pulling
thanks. That's
together
great.
all the work you're doing on the website.
Thanks, Mark. Really effective. I'm definitely going to donate. I've got some funding that's coming in, and if we get what we think, I'll make it more than just $50. Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. You got it.
Take care, everyone, and happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.